So, Kris, thanks for coming in today. Great to see you, buddy. We were just catching up there for a few minutes before we started, and yeah, such a pleasure to see you. For anyone who doesn't know, this is NCI University YouTube channel. It's our first video. My name is Merlin Obrecht. I'm the Dean of Academic Affairs here at NCI University, and we're going to be doing all kinds of videos on this channel, hopefully. Be doing some profiling videos and some videos about human behavior and some different things like that. And then also just going to be getting the opportunity to talk to some great people from our NCI University community and potentially some other people as well. So we got Kris here. Kris is relatively new student at NCI University, but he's really taken the time to dive into this content and start consuming it in a way that not very many other people do. He came to a live event that I taught in Austin, came to Black Course a couple months later, which is one of Chase's top events, and all in between there was just an incredible student and like vivaciously soaking this stuff up as fast as he can. So it's been really cool to watch his sort of meteoric progression through all this stuff. And I thought he would be a great person, great guest to have on. We're just going to be having a normal conversation today, talking about some stuff with NCI University and some things about human behavior. So thanks for joining us today, and hopefully you enjoy the video.
Thanks, Merlin. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, good to have
Hey,
you here
welcome,
with us.
guys. Yeah, of course.
Cool, man. So, yeah, first thing I've been curious about since you've kind of joined, like since you first came to the NCI2 live event
Mhm.
to finishing Black Course, what has been like, what were you thinking that it was going to be like versus what it's kind of been like so far going through all this stuff? Or what's the experience been like for you, I guess, as someone who's got fresh eyes to it all?
Initially, coming into this, I thought it was going to be more on like tactics and methods and everybody else, like everything external. And especially the Austin event, the NCI2, and then getting into Black Course, a lot of this starts within first. And it's really understanding self at the core. And the story that I've been saying recently to other people and self-promoting what I've been going through on my journey here, because it's
Yeah.
good and anything good I like talking about, is a lot of this. I thought it was, hey, here's a cool tactic, here's other things that I can use, here's how I can, another thing to stack onto the skill set, which it is. But the depth, I believe that robs some of the depth of it, because the depth of it is really understanding self all the way through yourself into other people and understanding the entire situation in the room. And I mean any room that you're in. And so I think that, it's definitely an eye opener, no pun intended,
Yeah.
um, because
It's a
in my
great way to
life,
put
and
it.
yeah, I think other people could attribute to this, is like you're always trying to stack like the new trick or the skill or anything else on. And like in the marketing world, I attend a lot of these events, and it's always like, here's the colors of the buttons, and here's how your website should be, and here's all this other stuff, which are all like external factors. And without understanding why these things work, this really tells you the why. I mean, this is like the root cause, like the 5 why methodology. Okay, well, why that? Well, why this? Well, why this? Like, this is the root cause of everything, in my opinion. And so it's just mind blowing. And like you've said, I've just started this entire journey. I've had
Yeah.
experience with this in the past, but the format and the content is literally mind blowing here, and it's like I can't get enough of it. I think the joke with this, I've been at the front of the class both times. I was all in. I'm like, asking at the NCI event in Austin, hey, I don't care what you guys have to offer. I want to buy it, but it
Yeah.
wasn't like a posturing setup, but it's like I'm addicted to learning stuff.
Yeah.
And so seeing this and seeing, wow, this is what makes people tick. This is what makes businesses tick. This is what makes the world tick. This is the cause behind a lot of stuff, and understanding the cause will help shed better light on decisions and formatting and and communication and confidence and everything forward. I mean, and I think that even that explanation is like 1/1000th of really what you guys have to offer.
Yeah, dude, I think you said it so well. I think you put that stuff so concisely. I
Hmm.
think you're right too. It's something that can be kind of hard to explain. Like you did a really great job with it, right? But like you said, to kind of encompass it all, it's like, all right, so what are we really doing with NCI University? It's like, well, understanding human beings. It's like, what does that mean? Well, it's like there's all these different layers you can explain it on, but really it's like everything from neuroscience to philosophy to psychology, the connected relationship between those things, the experience of life, how to understand our life, others' lives. I don't know, it's a strange kind of ethereal thing to pin down and describe. It's easy to talk
Hmm.
about the micro parts, but then when you try to kind of explain it as a big umbrella, not always the easiest thing to do.
Correct. And I guess to kind of, further that, everybody, it's like lately I've been on kind of this, biohacking kick, and it's always like, hey, eat better foods or work out or, get so many reps in at the gym. And the thing is, though, is like at the core, it's like, again, the core of that, well, if you're not getting good sleep, if you're not putting the right stuff in, that doesn't matter. If you're not
Right.
getting your head right, it doesn't matter. And so it's getting to the core of the core of the core, because then everything else falls in line from there. And I think that this is a tribute to the same thing in a sense, because there's this element, the methylene blue, the melatonin. I mean, you're getting your mind right and you're understanding the mind, which adjusts the thoughts, which then
Yeah.
adjusts the actions, which then adjusts everything else downstream. And so, if it's a horrible analogy, but if if an animal's pissing in a stream upstream, everything downstream is going to be horrible. It's going to be
Right.
tainted.
Right.
And
Right.
so remove the piss from the stream. Very bad analogy. I don't know why this
I think
came
it's
to
a great
mind,
analogy.
but
No problem with it. We can say piss here. It's all right. It's still PG-13.
yeah. So I think it's really getting the right ingredients and the right stream and the right set. And then it's like everything else kind of flows in and things are a lot more clear.
Yeah.
Pun intended on that.
Right. Dude, yeah, I think what you said about the core of the core of the core, which sounds confusing, but in my mind, that's kind of the most clear way too, which is that exactly like you said, who we are in terms of how we're feeding ourselves, how we're taking care of our soul, how we're taking care of our physical body. All of those
Mhm.
things then, like you said, reflect out to behaviors and actions, which then reflect out to outcomes and reflect out to how our life turns out and how people choose to treat us. It's like before, which I think kind of reflects back to what we teach with the authority and confidence stuff, right? Which is who you are is going to define the outcomes of being able to open people up so you can understand them better or being able to influence them without any conscious effort of that way before we're talking about any kind of techniquey stuff, like you said. Um, and it's
Mhm.
without a doubt the most powerful thing. Like the better, to your point, that we can just understand ourselves, I believe anyways, the better that we can understand the world around us, then all that communication stuff, most of it takes care of itself. And there is more advanced stuff we can learn and layer on top of that to create some pretty incredible outcomes. But as you learned at Black Horse, and damn, did you do good with that stuff. But it's interesting
Phenomenal.
how much of that stuff just filters back to who you are as a person and that kind of defining how well it's going to work or not. But also, I mean, how much of that influential things that you could teach someone, you're just going to naturally do if you're in
Mhm.
a state of authority, if you're in a state of confidence, and if you're kind of just, like you said, taking care of that internal self. So true, man.
I think it's neglected. I think that a lot of times the internal self is neglected. I mean, as NCI teaches, we put the ego at people posture. That's a form of neglection in itself. But just going throughout life, I think that we're in such a fast-paced society right now that our inner self gets buried even more. And I've always said, when somebody's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
what does success mean to you?" I'm like, "Success to me is defined by how you feel when you're alone." And I think a lot of that pays a tribute because all the distractions are gone away. The TV screens and the notifications and the conversations. And I mean, there's shows out there. I'm sure you'd like some and seen some of them, like Alone and things like that. I mean, people get in their own head. I mean, even Naked and Afraid. And these are people that are now in an environment and they're able to face themselves for the first time in a long time. And I think that they're really not comfortable with the person they are. And so, in my opinion, NCI kind of helps you on this journey like, hey, discover your inner self a little bit more,
Yeah,
and come to terms with who your inner self is and understand it so you don't hate it.
it's
And I
so
think
true.
that it's that I'm excited for it. And for me, I guess there's a lack of fulfillment, in my life on certain things with business, and I've lost a lot of people and stuff. And so, like, why am I feeling the way I am? Why did I do the things I did as a kid? These were questions I've always had. Now I might get answers to these as I progress, through the different levels here and really understand myself better.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. I'm looking forward to the exit retreat, which we were talking a bit about before as well. I think that's
Hmm.
going to be a crazy deep dive into that. I don't know if you find this too, but to me, it almost seems like sometimes that stuff comes in waves as well.
Hmm.
Like to where it's like you're on, it almost seems to me, at least in my experience of it, where it's like kind of you're unlocking these different layers. So it's like first you overcome this one big boundary where it's like, okay, now I'm getting more in touch with my emotions or something like that. And you're like, okay, now I've opened all of this up. And then you kind of get over some of that stuff, right? Like you said, you come to terms with yourself. You figure some of those things out to where you have a lot more congruence, you have a lot more inner peace. But it's kind of interesting to me. It seems inherent with self-development and becoming a better person. Like there's always another layer. It's like the never-ending onion, which I guess is good because life would be boring if you're just like, oh, now I'm an enlightened Buddhist. I don't have anything more to do anymore. But
I've reached it. That's it.
yeah, right, exactly. Um, but to me, that's been a really interesting part of the journey to where it's like there'll be times where I feel like I've really got that. I've really got that inner peace. I'm really comfortable with myself. And then there's other times where I feel like achieving that inner peace in some way or resolving something from the past now allows me to see this new barrier in front of me, this new thing that I now have to overcome to get to my next level. It's kind of like this endless leveling up. It's like as you become a better person and a more advanced version of yourself, it's like a
Hmm.
an endlessly evolving Pokemon, you know? You never
The,
really
the
reach the final
analogy
form. Yeah.
the analogy that kind of comes to mind with that is like it's like there's only so much light to see like a couple steps in front of you,
Yeah.
and then you don't know it's 10 steps or 20 steps or anything, but then you take those next two steps, um, and then you see like, okay, there's the next two, and then you continue forward from there. And so like it's, I guess that's the first analogy that comes to mind, but I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting, man. Cool. One other thing that I've been thinking about too, leading up to this conversation, I
Mhm.
would love to hear your honest feedback. Doesn't matter, we're on
Yeah.
a podcast right now. Just really tell me what you think about it. What was it like for you? And I guess because you learned a little bit, you'd seen Chase on some videos and stuff like that before you came to the Austin event.
Yes.
Yeah, so what was it like for you learning from me in contrast to Chase? What was that experience like?
I like the breadth of depth of knowledge from each of you because it's two different perspectives. And ironic because Black Course, we did teach, you guys taught on the different perspectives and having certain perspectives. And so I guess it enhances the experience because we're seeing two different perspectives. We're seeing from somebody who's doing the teachings, but then somebody else who's gone through all the teachings and is number one student, but also, part of the dean, but you have your own perspective on it. So it's originating from somebody, but it's being receptive and, um, back to originating in your own terms,
Yeah,
from yourself.
yeah, it was quite the description. Just keep going, though. It's interesting for me to understand. That does make sense. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like you said, it's all coming from this central source, which is Chase, and
Mhm.
ultimately Chase some of the stuff he's developed by himself, and then some of it as well he's bringing from kind of the greats throughout history, right, that have developed this stuff with hypnosis or influence or embedded
Mhm.
commands or self-development or whatever the case may be, going all the way back to Plato. But uh, yeah, that's interesting to hear that it was kind of like hearing the same stuff from a different perspective, though. What do you feel like is the different perspective? Like, how do you feel like? Because I mean, I guess I'm so in my head, I'm just me, so I don't really know how it's from other
I
people.
think I think that it's a good thing because, and it's not knock and chase, right? He's got so much in his head. You know, one of the things at Black Horse was like, hey, like I heard from a couple people, hey, we understand this, but like there's a gap of complete understanding. Like they hear the front end of it, we see what the result should be from this, but then there's like this little bit of a gap. And whatever that gap may mean, it's just could be a little time, could be like, hey, there's, and I've been a victim of this as well, and many other people that are super creative, probably even yourself and anybody watching, is that you understand something that it makes sense to you, so the smaller details get cut out of it,
Oh,
or
right. Yeah.
something that's very small could be overlooked because it's like the concept is already there, but to somebody else, they can't go from, you know, 1 2 3 to 6 to 8 to it's, and so that one little number that's missed in there is like, wait, I'm kind of losing track because it doesn't make sense. They just don't have the complete understanding of it yet. Whereas you're essentially, and I guess, you know, not to have a play in words here, but like the buffer in a sense, because the way you explain certain things, like I'm going back and I'm watching videos in grad school now that were some of the stuff that you had taught. It's good for repetition, but how you taught it in NCI 2 in Austin, like you did a phenomenal job at it. And I think that, and it's not, I'm not comparing the videos to this, but it's you broke the concepts down to where it covered every single point. And then you gave your own experience in with it, which was, I think, very valuable because it doesn't come out that way. But I guess understanding your position and how you got to where you're at right now, you know, it could be all in my head, you know. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I think that it brings a different breadth of understanding and knowledge to it because you've gotten the experience and the training. So you've gotten the training, but then you've got your own experience to add with it. Whereas the training is different from your own experience. These are two things that you're combining into one, where it's from two different people. You know, it's your experience here. The training is coming from somebody else here in a sense.
Yeah.
Whereas Chase, it's one person. The training and the experience is one, and it's not good, bad, right, or wrong. But it does give that breadth of detail, additional detail, and a better understanding to it, I think. And I've seen a difference. I mean, Chase is so,
He's just so
it's like,
advanced. He's so
it's, yeah,
like things that he doesn't even think are a skill sometimes. It's like, oh, that's common knowledge. It's like maybe to you, but not
yeah.
not to us. Yeah. 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 I've definitely found that for sure sometimes when I'm going through stuff. I'm like, wait, like, where are you getting that idea from? What's that based on? Because he's
Hmm.
to me that is not obvious how you just made that logical extrapolation or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's well said because that's what I was trying to get at. Is it's just the amount of knowledge that's in there. It's like, man, I mean, even if he opened his head up on some of the, like he does in some of these trainings that he does, it's just like it's still, it's almost like a condensed version, where you take the condensed version and then probably bring it down like one more notch to, you know,
Yeah, right.
I
It'd be like a math problem where it's like Chase is not showing as many of his steps. Whereas like I'm like
Mhm.
breaking it down a little more elementary style. Like, okay, we carried the one over here, and then because of that, we got a two. Yeah.
And then on an even more rudimentary, it's like the concentrate orange juice that came in the can. Like you got to add all this water to it. Whereas like now we're just buying the concentrate in a half gallon that you just add a little water and it makes a full gallon. Like
Right. That's awesome, dude. Cool, man. Well, thanks for
yeah.
sharing your perspective on that. It's interesting for me to hear. And
Hmm.
good to know. It's definitely something I'll try to make sure that I keep doing is breaking out all those things into little steps because I've actually never really had a conversation with anyone before about that of
Hmm.
what they really found like was the difference and what were maybe some of the benefits that they found.
Yeah.
Because obviously I want to continue to get better as a teacher and helping people, so it's helpful for me to understand.
I know you put a ton of work into that. I mean, hanging out with you after the Austin event, I was new to this, so it's still kind of like, what's the lay of the land? Who is everybody? Like, what's their
Yeah.
positions? And, and then finding out, I mean, we hung out for 4 or 5 days and then seeing like, dude, you were exhausted after that. I mean, you put a ton of effort into doing that. And that, I mean, it came out phenomenal. It was probably, so far, these have been the most amazing events that I've ever been to. And then I'm not saying that because we're on it here. I'd give honest feedback on that. But being in this space, we're in a lot of different masterminds and we go to a lot of different things. I mean, me and my wife have done this for many, many years, and the depth of knowledge on this, and I think it's the perceived value is so much underscore of what the actual value is,
Right.
because it's hard, I think, on two fronts. A, because, and I want to say I heard this somewhere one time, is when you market out to somebody and you say, hey, the skills and the tactics to read people and blah blah blah. I mean, like that's the sexy thing, right? I hate that term, but there's really no other term. Like that's the wanted thing. Oh, I want to learn more about this because of whatever, and it's a marketing term. But then you get involved in it, you go, wow, like let me flip this on its head, and this is really about so much other stuff. That's just like 1/100th of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, so if that's used as the cliffhanger and the hook to bring people in, so be it, man. It's, I mean, why not make it work?
Yeah, but so true, man. So true. I think about that too. Like it's even when people will ask me like what do I do for work or what do I really study with NCI University? It's
Hmm.
hard to explain, kind of like we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, without just using some super condensed milk version to go back to your condensed drinks metaphor of it,
Powdered milk.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool though, man. You do a really good job. I think you too, because you're like just like you were saying, some of the stuff you feel like I describe in a helpful way because I just learned it not that long ago. Because
Mhm.
you're even fresher through it. There's some of the ways you're describing this stuff. I don't even feel like I could re-say what you just said as well, because you've got this really fresh perspective on it. I totally agree with
Mhm.
everything you're saying, though. It's so true.
I mean, it's, you guys have like under promised and over delivered on literally everything. I mean, it's I'm addicted to this now every day. I mean, it was the black course and getting primed for that on some of the videos that you had sent over, because we had our call and I said, hey, like where do I start? Like, what do I do here? Because we just came out of NCI 2, and then you gave me these videos to watch. I think there was like 5 or 6 of them, and I watched them. I want to say 7 or 8 times. It was just
Oh, wow.
over. I mean, it was because a lot of it too is repetition, but I
Yeah.
think that I know my own faults as well. And I guess for anybody listening to this, it's like, your own faults and I know mine. And mine is watch, 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 watch. Well, it's not, it's the first pass is not always going to be the best pass because you're going to
Yeah.
miss, I don't know, it's arbitrary number, but probably 40 to 70% of what's actually being said. And so then you pick up a little bit more the second time and the third time and the fourth time. And then by then it's not looking at it for repetition, at least for me, but it was more like, how do I watch this so that, like, out of that hour video that I'm watching, whatever happened at 50 minutes into it, I completely missed that the first time. And that actually, makes this make sense over here. And so by the fifth or sixth or seventh time, I'm connecting dots within this own video that I'm like, now this makes sense. Now I have the biggest, fullest picture of, maybe an 80% understanding of what's going on here. Again, another arbitrary number, but yeah, I think that I wanted to make sure that I was like really in line for that. And then after doing the black course, now it's the exit retreat, which there's a month for that. And it's just phenomenal. I mean, every night doing the hypnosis session on that, I think I missed one night on that total.
Good for
But
you, man. That's awesome.
yeah, it was, I mean, the stuff works, and going through all the stuff is just, it's literally hands down some of the best training that I've been through, because it's I wouldn't even know how to say it. I mean, the breadth of knowledge that goes into this is like the action is it's really up to the person how much to apply it. I
Right.
mean, there's it's yeah, the all the knowledge is there, all the training is there. It's just I'm in my mind like, okay, I can't get overloaded from this. Like I
Yeah,
wish I could
this
watch
could
all the
easily just
videos.
become your life now. Dude, I hear you. That's the thing with human behavior. Like, it's like you said, it's like
Mhm.
the pool has an unlimited depth to it. It's kind of like you're
Yes.
diving. It's like, listen, you can just like dive down 10 feet if you want. You get some great results, some things you can go take away and use in your life right away. But if you want to keep diving, the pool goes on forever, brother. Like, it's the
Hmm.
human brain. I mean, it's in some ways, in my mind, anyways, it's the best. It's awesome that it's never ending because it gives you something to continue to do. It's like the never-ending puzzle that you'll never fully solve is kind of,
Hmm.
figuring out human behavior in its entirety and figuring out the human brain in its entirety. It's just the human brain, it turns out, is a pretty goddamn complex organism. Um, I think you said it so well. It's like the deeper you dive, the more you realize how big the ocean is, kind of, the more you see all the stuff. And it's
Hmm.
fascinating. You want to keep going and learning. Um, unless you're someone like me who you're like, all right, well, now this is just my career. This is going to be my life. At a certain point, you probably got to be like, all right, well, I got some great stuff to be able to use in my life and make my life better, influence people
Hmm.
around me better, but I got to start going to do this other stuff because you could really easily just like trip, fall down the rabbit hole, look up, and next thing you know, it's like it's the only thing you do. There's so much to do. There's so much to learn in human behavior. It really is endless. I've
It
definitely
is.
found that to be true as well.
Early on, I mean, in your, when you came onto this, it was you were head over heels over. I mean, you dove straight in, huh? And you were, I mean,
Yeah,
on your, yeah,
when I definitely uh some people might call it obsession, other people would call it passion, right? It's a matter of
yeah.
perspective. But
Compulsion. No.
right, exactly. You pick your word. I'm not here to judge. It's your perspective, not mine, but definitely that was the case for me for sure.
Mhm.
It might be a fun story to tell. I guess a lot of people on here who don't know me too well. But basically had a bunch of different things going on in my life where it's just very serendipitous timing to where I had a business at the time where I had a decent amount of free time where my business would keep running. It wasn't necessarily optimized, wasn't going the best that it could go, but everything still would continue to happen. I'd also just lost passion with my original business that I'd started, which was in my early 20s. Um, and had other couple other big life changes going on to where it's like I just had this massive window of space of opportunity.
Mhm.
And when I found all the stuff about Chase, I loved philosophy in college. I loved liberal arts. I loved studying Plato and Immanuel Kant and a lot of the old great philosophers. I'm thinking about philosophical problems really deep. And I had thought about some of the things that Chase has created models and systems for were kind of like intellectual Rubik's cubes that I had thought about before in the past. And when I first found Chase, like I knew how difficult it was to figure out systems. So like when we think about a system, it's like here's this model or graph that's going to be able to represent this fundamental truth about reality, which typically appears to be expressed in a relatively chaotic manner, meaning it's something that appears to not have order or structure for it in the natural world, naturally given. Um, and then you as a human can kind of try to go in and figure out a system to understand this series of expressions or of behaviors or of truths about reality. And it's really difficult. Like, if you get deep into this stuff, you will see why some of those mathematicians are going fully crazy. What was that movie back in the day? It was like A Beautiful Mind or something like that.
Oh yeah,
Where the guy's
it
like
was.
he's like going fully insane trying to figure out these like this mathematical formula for the stock market and or something like that.
Mhm.
And you can really see, if you study enough about philosophy and you're not just learning about philosophy, but you're actually trying to solve problems and come up with new solutions for things. I think similarly to math, you could definitely see pretty quickly how people could just go insane because it feels like you're walking around in this black room where there's no answers and there's just a chaotic amount of information and data and logical contractions and all of these like billions of little data points everywhere. And then you're constantly just trying to build a system or a model to understand and relate to all of these different data points. But it keeps
Hmm.
breaking. It's like every time you build the system, you're like, oh no, there's an exception to the rule. Okay, so this system doesn't work. Let's try to change the system and make it like this. Then you test again, and you're like, oh, it doesn't work again because there's this contradiction over here. Um,
Hmm.
and it's just this thing where you kind of like keep going down and down and down. Anyways, long story short, when I found Chase, I realized that he had somehow figured out how to build a lot of these systems and models to represent truth above 90%, which I always, whenever I'm explaining anything to do with this to people, it can't be overstated how impressive it is, especially in the realm of psychology or philosophy, to build a model that expresses reality's truth above 90%. If we go look at even the most concrete, reliable models and systems in math and physics that we have, something like
Hmm.
Newtonian physics, still has experiments you can do that prove the entire theory or model wrong. So, like, even in the most reliable, sturdy scientific models that human beings have ever built, still contain within them exceptions to the rule. And psychology, because it's has a very large subjective component to it, is inherently
Hmm.
slippery like that. It's really tricky to figure out something that represents all truths all of the time. This is why Plato is so great and why there's probably never been another philosopher as great as Plato, because it's kind of like some of Albert Einstein's famous equations. It's extremely elegant and almost perfect in its logic. Um, which very few, if any, other philosophers were ever able to replicate. But yeah,
Hmm.
so found Chase, saw some of the models he'd put together, was just floored because immediately I took the models and I started trying to do what I did before. I started trying to break them apart, look for the contradictions to them, look for how these models could be proven wrong, and figured out pretty quickly that a lot of them were bang on. And I was just like, holy shit, how did this guy do this? Like, how it was just incredible to me that he had somehow figured out a way to pull it off and to build these things. Um, so then I think it was that, and then all of the serendipitous timing lining up to where I
Hmm.
just fell into everything that Chase had done like a black hole. And I truly mean a black hole at that time. I think probably everyone that I knew got tired of me saying the word Chase Hughes. And and then just like talking about the different stuff. And I would just spend like 7, 8 hours every day nonstop learning about it. And I won't go on
Hmm.
forever about this, but yeah, basically, make a long story short, ended up becoming very committed to the idea of working with Chase and over a period of the last 5 years, kind of put each of those little puzzle pieces together to
Hmm.
start integrating myself into the company. And I'm also super lucky at some point in my journey, not at the beginning, but at some point along the path I'm very lucky that Chase, for whatever reason, decided to see something in me. And that's a big part of the reason why I've gotten where I am today as well, is that
Yeah.
Chase just decided, like, all right, I'm going to invest in this guy. And he's poured ungodly amounts of time and money and resources into helping train me throughout the last few years as well. So definitely wouldn't be here without good
Hmm.
old Chase
Well, it
helping.
shows, man. I
Yeah,
mean,
thanks, man.
your breadth of knowledge on this stuff is phenomenal as well. It's like you said. I mean that ocean goes deep. It's I don't even there is no bottom, but I'm still at the part where it's light. I haven't
Right.
even
Yeah. Just looking down there like, holy shit.
I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, there's a black hole down there still. Like it
Yeah.
just goes and goes.
Yeah.
And I can't get enough of it. I don't I'm doing it a little different this time, instead of trying to consume everything. It's like you guys teach. It's, hey, get segments of this stuff down and then use those as building blocks on top of each other. My perception of that, instead of
Yeah,
just
so
going
true.
ham on everything, and then you're like, oh my God, like what's going on? It's get a couple things down, understand a couple of things. That's why Black Horse, that was phenomenal. I mean, learning captor and crossfade and some of the other protocols that you guys are teaching in there, and really getting the repetitions. I think that it's what it came down to is being around other like-minded individuals, that were qualified enough, and we all have the understanding that we're there. We've paid a certain amount to be there, so now let's pay attention and give everybody else the decency to not be on our phones, not have outside, situations affect us. And I think, the same for exit retreat as well. It's like these are the first times, and maybe I'm getting such a better result out of this. I don't think this is the case, but I always look at all the factors, right? Maybe I'm getting such a better result because, at least for me, I said, hey, the Austin event, the Black Horse event, the exit event, like it's either all in or nothing. It's not, have one of your toesies in and you're effing around somewhere else. It's
Yeah.
be completely immersed in this, because if for me, if I make this the immersion, when I'm there, I'm not on the phone. Like phone's down, completely present in the room. I was right in front of you the whole time in Austin, and I'm just like, I mean, what was crazy is that actually being present in the moment, and I've told this to you off camera, I think a couple times as well, is it was like, it's crazy because the energy, the amount of retention that you're getting from this, the focus, it's a novelty, like you guys teach. The novelty creates the focus, and it was being focused on the retention was there, not the mention. Just the energy from both of those events, afterwards was like, geez, like I couldn't even sleep the last nights on both of them. The
Really?
first time, yeah, it was like maybe it's an energy with everybody that's there because we're all operating at such a high level frequency. I think part of it, a big part of it was that, and I think the other part of it too was just, it's this new environment that I'm able to use this stuff. I mean, in any aspect forward, with family, with business, with communications, with marketing, in some of my trainings later on. It's, makes me a better person. I think makes me a little bit more humble. I think, and I'd likely say, hey, I don't have an ego, but I'd be lying if I did, because we teach, hey, we all have a mask.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that, whether we're hiding something or we're shameful of something or whatever the case may be, I think that utilizing this to articulate, communicate, have better confidence all around, and just be more contempt with yourself. Because for me, and it goes back to what I said earlier. I mean, anybody that's by themselves for a period of time, you start ruminating on a lot of these thoughts, and the I shoulds and I should have did this better and past, and maybe certain actions and stuff. But I think ultimately, if you're content with yourself, you're more, like you guys teach as well, is you're more confident. The communication gets better, and that's some of the stuff that I teach on the side with entrepreneurs. Is confidence and communication is the cyclical loop. The
Right.
better that your confidence is, the better you communicate, which kind of fuels itself, which makes everything else better downstream. And so, yeah, I think that it's literally giving lifelong tools, that are going to be used forever, and rewriting the program of us, which is kind of a metaphor that Chase indirectly uses as well. Is rewriting these programs. And so I just wish that I would have done this sooner. I mean, there's people that were at Black Horse that are in their 20s. One guy was 14 years old. I'm like, dude,
I
like,
can't
do you know what
believe
I
I
would
don't know.
give right
You and me
now?
both, brother. Right? Can you imagine? Yeah, I
And
hear
he's
you.
getting it. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, your life. It's always, in entrepreneur world, they always talk about like, oh, what's the opportunity cost? What's the opportunity cost? What's the opportunity cost not to learn this stuff? I
Mm,
mean, and that's like, even if an experiment was done, I don't think that we would ever know that. Like if
right.
somebody learned this stuff to not learning it, what amount of trajectory? All I know is the trajectory would just be astronomically larger than knowing this and doing better overall in your life than not knowing it. again, not saying that because I'm on this video here, but at the same time, just these are the core of how we think, how we operate, how we communicate, and so that
Yeah. So
will
true, man.
just make everything better.
100%. Yeah, to get all this stuff when you're 14, 15 years old be quite a dream. I mean, like you said, everything happens. You, well, I don't know. Maybe everything happens for a reason. Maybe not. Who knows? Either way, you can't look
Mhm.
back. It's not helpful to look back. Uh, in either case, yeah, totally agree.
Mhm.
And dude, it's really cool to hear your perspective of it coming in so fresh, so fired up. Interesting what you said about that energy too, when you're with a group of people that are all so passionate about learning something.
Mhm.
It is this interesting effect that happens. It's almost like this exponential growing where it's like you're super fired up and then they're really fired up. So like it create and then Jane's really fired up and Doug's really fired up and it creates this exponential growth effect where everyone's very motivated to learn and really passionate about it, but you can also feel this like ramping up of energy as well. To a point, like you said at the end, where you're just like you're so wired for sound, you're so into it that you can't even sleep at the end.
The senses are all like heightened, and I mean the amount of intake is just it's crazy. And I think I've never, I mean, the only other environment that I've been in that we've had to learn stuff. I mean, this was even more cramming more information in a shorter period of time. Because I was going to say the Navy for me was when I had to learn, foreign country submarines and all their, frequencies and stuff like that from my position there. And it was just learning these massive charts, but we had weeks to learn that, 8 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, coming the black course. And we're like, here's what you guys are going to learn. You're going to learn it in 4 days. And I mean, it's understanding like, hey, I can do this,
Yeah.
and then walking away and having it down and actually being immersed in it and memorizing it. And I still haven't forgot it. I mean, we're a couple weeks away from it, but coming back into society and using it in your day-to-day life, um, it's still there. It's like learning to ride a bike, and you might get a little bit rusty if you don't ride it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but you get back on it, you're able to do it again.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
Man, it was so cool watching the changes that everyone at Black Horse went through. And you were definitely towards the top of that list. But just seeing uh you guys kind of change throughout those 3, 4 days
Mhm.
was so cool to see. It was the most badass transformation. This last Black Horse was the most badass, I think, extreme transformations that I got to see in
Wow.
people in that short a period of time. And it was a special thing to have played a small role and been a part of for sure.
So you're a huge role, man. I mean, you and Michael and Darius. I mean, just you guys bringing the eclectic knowledge there and seeing us, witnessing us going through our workups and our repetitions, and then correcting us and doing the course corrections. It's like invaluable, And so
Yeah.
I think and I was going to ask you, like, what was the biggest thing for you to see in us? Because that was seeing the change of coming in, was it the beliefs changing or just finally people getting the aha moments of everything?
To me, it was, I think, number one, people's confidence. So, like, there was some people who came in with good confidence on day one, and those people at the end seemed to have it to where, like, they could run captor or crossfade in their sleep, literally. Um, then there was other people, and to me, this was like the more heartwarming one, was there was
Hmm.
some people coming in that were almost struggling to be able to do any of the exercises on day one. They're kind of tripping over their words. They're feeling, just not that confident about their ability to learn these techniques or ability to use these things in influence. And then watching the change that people went through. And to me, when we did that exercise on the last day, where everyone kind of came through Chase's office, and it was Chase and I kind of giving people feedback on their different
Hmm.
captor or crossfade exercises. Man, a couple of the people that came through, like, it just pretty much gave me goosebumps to just see how far they had come. Like they were now executing it at a super high level. You could feel their confidence radiating out of them. And for anyone who doesn't know what crossfade and captor is, by the way, I'm realizing probably a lot of people won't know what this is. Um, you to say, Kris, how would we describe this to someone who has no idea?
Crossfade. Oh man. I
Shit.
know.
Yeah. Anyways,
If
suffice
I.
it to say, they're like we're teaching them these very advanced influence techniques. This is in some ways like the epitome or the pinnacle of combining multiple influence techniques into a formula. So think about like you got one individual ingredient for cooking. This is like we're combining all of these ingredients to create some Michelin star recipe. And
Mhm. Like
you get
10 to 20 to 25 or 30 almost. It's.
right. And right, exactly. So then you get people at the beginning sticking with that metaphor that's like, all right, here's the ingredients, here's the recipe, but like they just don't know how to cook, you know? Like they don't know how to combine the ingredients. The shit's not coming out that good at the end, regardless of the fact that it's an incredible recipe. And to see at the end, it would have been
Mhm.
like, people just bringing together these incredible meals. Um, but for this, it was like it's even more powerful in some ways because for influence, even as the person who's doing the grading or giving the feedback, you really get a chance to feel it when someone's locked in and when all of the things come out properly and they're genuine and they're sincere and they're not contrived, they're not they're not overly rehearsed. It's like really someone speaking their truth and being who they are, but then layering on top these techniques.
Yeah.
Fuck, like the coolest feeling in the world to watch people go through that change and have helped people to go through that change,
Mhm.
especially the people to me that started at the lowest and then just seeing their transformation. I'd do that every single 7 days of the week if I could, It's like
Mhm.
one of the best feelings I can imagine to watch people go through that. So basically two, right? Is you asked what did I see in people? Number one was their ability to practically do these techniques. Like people who didn't even know what an embedded command was, then moving along to being able to execute it so well that even though you know what's happening, you could like feel something pulling out of your chest as they drop it. Like you could really feel the impact and the effect of it. Um, so the techniques of them, just people's confidence, people's ability to feel more comfortable in their skin, to feel, as I think, like you said, you put that really well, how the kind of the communication and the confidence going hand in hand. So it's like as people
Mhm.
communicated more, as they could see themselves getting better and things working, then their confidence ramped up. And some of these people, I hope anyways, are able to take that confidence and drive it forward into other areas of their life, like continue that momentum and
Mhm.
continue that wave or that increase in confidence. It was badass to see though. It was yeah.
Where it kind of clicked for me was, it's you're stacking these skills on, and like you said, I think you're still rigid. You're trying to get the technique down, and then once you get the technique down and you become fluid for that portion of the technique, like let's say out of 10, the hypothetical 10 steps, you get step one and two, and you realize, okay, step one and two makes three better, and if I do, these three, and then you get these segments down. I guess in the DJ world, let me break this down a little bit easier. In the DJ world,
Yeah.
you can mix song by song by song by song, and sometimes on a live set, people are like, "Oh my God, that DJ! How is he doing that? He's climbing trusses and doing all this crazy stuff. The songs are mixing themselves." Well, it's a 15-minute block of like seven, 6 or 7 mixed songs together, and he's just mixing 4 blocks together to make an hour. And so
Right.
it's in my mind, that's how it was best suited, is okay, how do I take like 1 through 4 and then 5 through 8 and then do these, and then I start putting these together. At least for me, that's when I learned it. I was like, okay, this is making sense. And then when you say it to somebody and you get comfortable, because I want to say, at least in my observation there, I think a little bit for me, but also for a lot of other people, is the fear of the public speaking, even though it's
Yeah.
only in front of 2 or 3 other people.
Right.
But finally getting to a point, because I was like this the first day too. It was like when I started running some stuff, like, oh my gosh, I sound like an idiot right now, But
Right. Right.
like, sound like an idiot, like hurry up
Yeah.
and sound like an
Yeah.
idiot so you get it out of the way.
So well said, dude. Yeah. So well said.
And so it became like, because I would hear other people, well, we'd have partners or we'd be in groups, and I'd hear other people. I'm like, okay, like they're unsure of how they're sounding as well. Well, I'm in the same boat. So if we're sharing this, then who gives an F? Like,
Yeah.
let's just act like we're, and then it's getting past that moment. And then you start, like you said, you start hearing it from other people, and you're like, wow, like I feel it resonate. I feel it pulling. It's working.
Yeah.
There's like, trust the process and just do it. And then, yeah, I think that was, for me, that was the biggest aha moment, in learning this stuff. It's, and plus how impactful this can be. And I think, and I always try to correlate these things, and I say, like, I think all of us have these certain elements in us already, and we're able to do these. We just never structured it. We never identified it. We never structured it. We never said, hey, in this order is the maximum efficiency. Because all we know is, oh, I did this before. This reminds me of I did this before, and like, but it worked there, and I didn't know why it worked. So I just kept doing that, or I tried another variance of something else. And this is before you learn all this stuff. And then you learn it, and you're like, okay, there's a format here, and these were the things that I did before. Call it whatever you want on your actions, but
Yeah.
here's the equal for equal, equal for equal. Now it makes sense. Now it's the fastest to the success rate of implementing and using this, and it's just reprogramming yourself to say, okay, here's my building blocks. I just had to reorganize these and identify these, and then that's, for me, that's what another big aha moment for me was okay, now it makes sense. Like, I was may have been doing portions of this before. I just didn't know what it was. I didn't know why it worked. There was
Right.
no, technological term for it or identifier for it or anything like that. But now there is, and so now it makes sense, and there's a better understanding of it.
Man, that's so well said. I love that. It's beautifully put. Yeah, it's interesting
Mhm.
how that is, though, to your point, that there's so much of things, whether it be with behavior profiling or with influence stuff, when we learn it, we're like, oh, wait, that's like we're learning some bigger technique. We're like, oh, I didn't do the whole thing, but I used to do that one part of it all the time. And
Mhm.
never really understood why that was effective, but now I kind of get the reason behind that. Now I can see the root of it. You can see the why, as you were kind of
Yeah.
saying at the beginning.
And without going into too much detail, I mean, even like the asking for advice. I mean, how many times has anybody ever gone up to somebody else and
Right,
asked for advice?
right,
But then you stack like one or two things on top of it, and you're like, now you just got the key that unlocks four doors. You just got the master key that unlocks all the doors.
right. Yeah, so true. Yeah, so true. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious for you. Like, we kind of talked a bunch about influence there.
Mhm.
What have been some of the ways that behavior profiling has kind of changed, or just like understanding other human beings? And oh yeah, this is another thing I'm curious about for you. Did you? Because I found this as well. It's interesting that it seems like the better you get at doing influence, like it's interesting how if we break out the success triangle, which for those who don't know is self-mastery, observation, and communication, right? So the fancy, more technical terms would be like authority and confidence, behavior profiling, influence and persuasion. But it's always interesting to me the interconnected relationship between those three. So it's like you go through something like a black course, and
Mhm.
now you get out of black course, and you're seeing people do all of these influence techniques every single day without them realizing that they're doing it. And you can even watch them work. Like you can watch someone who has no idea what they're doing, essentially trip over these different influence techniques and watch them have this effect on people. Um,
Mhm.
and it seems to me like it allows you to then just even understanding the influence stuff allows you to understand people better. It allows you to profile situations, even if you're not involved in it, just understanding what's happening in this dynamic and why is this person choosing to make this decision. You get that with so much more clarity now. And it's almost this whole different element to profiling that you could never learn until you really unlock that influence side of it. And then you can see the influence play out. So it's like
Mhm.
the influence is indirectly related to profiling. And then as well, like you're saying about the confidence. I mean, how much do people's confidence improve just from showing their brain evidence, proof of their ability to communicate in these more advanced ways, of their
Mhm.
ability to interact with people and see the outcomes that they're able to create. even without working on any of that inner work stuff. It has definitely a measurable effect on people's confidence. But yeah, I guess I would be curious to know, first, did you see that? And then number two, what have been some of the things that you've started to notice about people different?
I think, it's, I'll start with going inward before going outward again, like I said early on, because it was, I came into this with like, hey, a little bit of my background. I've done loss prevention, detective work for corporate Sears, two Fortune 500 companies, corporate detective, which we get involved in different operations and stores and stuff like that. And we do crime rings, financial crime. I mean, all sorts of crazy, crazy stuff.
Wow.
And even before that, growing up with gangs on the streets, you're always aware of your surroundings and the minute different. You're put into a fear environment, and so you're focused on things that, at least with me, and there's going to be people like, well, I wasn't in that environment, I can't share that, but I have a point with this that I'm getting to. For me, it was focused on a surviving, but what are these micro movements from people that keep myself safe?
Right.
And then later on DJing, and then it's on a macro level because you're constantly looking at the crowd, and the crowd's always telling you something. Do they like the song? Do they not? Are they shifting? Are they is there a threat somewhere? Is there a fight somewhere? Is there And so like I was always kind of like interested in what made people do the things that they did, but there was never a resource to go to except the stuff that I learned in the military and then the stuff that I learned afterwards for Fortune 500 companies and doing interrogations and doing interviews and reading body language for people that are committing crimes and stuff like that, and then bringing my own resources from my own life into it. And so looking at some of this stuff, like there was always the question of like, why? Because even though like, yes, there's the general public and then there's the people that have another level of knowledge and then there's like the experts at it, but there's like every level you understand more of the why of like why do people do these things, like what enticed them to do that, and there's the surface level stuff which are the people down here are going to tell you, and then there's it's the same question but different answers the higher you get with the more sophistication and knowledge that you'll have on this. And so for me, I guess I could put myself in the middle tier because I'm not an expert at it, but I always said like why did people do things, like why did I do the things that I did when I was younger, why did I act this way in certain situations like a kid. It's like they ask why so many times because they want to learn everything. Well, I'm still asking why to this day. Like, why does, this person do this or these group of people do that or in this environment this happened? And there's always been these question marks. And so, coming into this environment and learning more about this, like I see that question mark gets answered down the road. Like the more I get into this and the more I understand it, the
Mm.
more those questions get answered inadvertently, because then I can go back and go, okay, well, I understand influence a little bit more. I understand why this person did this in this situation. I understand the Catholic protocol, the crossfade protocol, like even the body language stuff. I mean, the littlest things that are in here is just another puzzle piece to this bigger puzzle of like, now I'm starting to see the whole picture to really understand why everything happened in life. I mean, yes, is there still going to be 10% that you'll never understand because of unknown variables and the other side of the situation? Of course. But understanding and having a better understanding of why your entire life, I think just makes you a better person. It makes me a better person because it goes back to being content with it. And so early on, it's like, somebody may not have grown up in the same environment, or they may not have DJ'd, or they may not have done the things I did, but I'm sure at some point, like they have all sat in a room or by themselves at some point and go, wow, I wonder what the hell happened there, or I wonder why this happened. And maybe you could watch 10 of these videos, but the 11th video at 35 seconds in, for whatever video it is, you go, oh my God, like that makes sense now. Like I completely understand, again within reason, why this situation happened 25 years ago. And I really believe that it makes you a better person as well, because it's making me a better person. I've tried to amend. Before I came into this, I was already on a trajectory of like I want to make amends with people. I want people to come into my ecosystem and leave better than when they come in. I
Yeah.
always want to help other people out. You know, rising tide raises all ships, which Chase says it differently. We rise by lifting others, and so like these were congruent there. And ironic enough, your story like it fits kind of with my position right now. You know, we have some businesses, and I got some time and kid on the way, and I have time to dedicate towards this. And I know like a good thing when I see it, not only from a marketer standpoint, but my own life. And I'm like, this is invaluable that I don't want to waste any other time like not doing it. You know, and somebody could probably be watching this and go, "Oh my God, this guy is totally drinking the Kool-Aid." Well, you should be drinking the Kool-Aid too,
Yeah.
because
You're
like
damn straight I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
you're damn straight, man. I'm drinking every color of it. Like,
That's so funny. Oh,
but I
I
think
think you
that,
say that well. I mean, obviously people can make whatever choice they feel like is right for them, and I would never
yeah.
try to, personally, anyways, would never want someone in our ecosystem that doesn't feel
Mhm,
like they want to be a part of it. And, no pressure to anybody at all. But I think you're right. I mean, for me, for sure, I can speak for myself. It has been
mhm.
such a valuable thing in my life, and it sounds like it's been pretty helpful for you as well. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just like great information that we've put together at NCI University that Chase has spearheaded, and Chase has really put together himself over the last 30 years of
Mhm,
combining the best of the best from Carl Jung to Cicero to Milton Erickson to David Ellman to Plato, and on it goes, like all these great thinkers throughout history and these great people who've kind of stacked these bricks on the big pyramid of understanding the human mind, understanding influence, and throughout Chase's career in the military, put together some stuff that, in my opinion, is there's no way to look at it that's not impressive. And
mhm,
it's just awesome stuff to learn about, man. It's so cool to learn a little bit more about how people work, how ourselves work. I think one thing you said that was really that I really agree with was, which is maybe not intuitive for everyone. They wouldn't think about this, but that when you start to learn more about other people, there's always an effect of having a greater sense of empathy, almost. Oh,
mhm.
hesitate to say always because there's typically an exception to some rule somewhere, but it's interesting that there's a direct connection to that, right? Because it's like the more you understand people better,
Mhm.
the more you understand where they came from, the more you understand why those things happened or sorry, like why their actions and behaviors have become what they are based on all the things they may have gone through in their life. And it's just like an invariable connection that you then start to have such a deeper sense of empathy for the people around you, I think. And for anyone you meet, even if it's some asshole on the highway honking and beeping and yelling at people. You're now able, to me anyways, it provides such a greater lens to be able to see those people with greater empathy and compassion. And yeah. So I mean,
See
like
him
you
as
said,
reasons.
yeah, seeing them as reasons, exactly, man. Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say with you, I think, what do you think that is? Is it's like it's a feedback loop indirectly in their head of like, you know, somebody you don't you don't know how to measure something and you don't know what something is until you define it. And really, a lot of these trainings are defining all of these methods, tactics, protocols, like all of it. And so you become consciously aware of it now, and then link that to like a past action, or a way you felt or a thought process that you had in the past, and go, wow, like I guess for the enlightened ones, if you will, maybe there was the good ones, and they go, now it makes sense why I thought like that, or there's a reason behind it. And then the non-enlightened ones, I guess, or the negative side of it is like, wow, maybe I did something and I'm not really proud of that, but I can shift that and not do that next time because I'm aware of the thought process behind it now, or even seeing other people and saying, this guy just called me an F and A. I'm not going to get mad at him. He's probably having a bad day.
Yeah,
He's,
you god dang F and A, those F and A's, I tell you, it's funny, buddy. Um, yeah, so close. I think what you're saying is probably right. The way that I see this specifically is that in order for us to denigrate another person or to get really angry at someone, there is an
Hmm.
inherent but often sort of hidden or concealed dehumanization of that person. So we're not really consciously aware of it. It's just someone's getting angry at us. Let's use the freeway example. Someone's getting angry on the freeway, and we just instantly feel like, wow, what an asshole. We place a label onto them, right? Um, and consciously, we don't really perceive it. We don't realize that this has happened. But in order for us to do that, we kind of had to create a lack of understanding about who that person might or could be. So it's the same thing that you see people do in wartime, where they're able to, this is like a way more avert, super extreme example, where people who are fighting an enemy will often dehumanize the enemy so that they have less emotional impact associated with any killing that might happen.
Hmm.
We do this all the time in a more micro version when we're judging someone that we just see walking down the street, even maybe we're creating a narrative about like, wow, what a weird person or what a loser. You see kids do this in high schools. Uh, we'll do this in even in the workplace or in any public environment that we're meeting other people. But anytime we have a negative judgment towards someone, it's almost always associated with some degree of inherent dehumanization. So when we get better at profiling, really it just becomes impossible to ignore, or it makes it much more difficult to ignore at least the human elements of somebody that makes them that inherently generate empathy in us as the observer. So I think if that sounded like a lot of complicated words to anyone listening,
No, not at all.
the okay, perfect. So, but for anyone out there, this is, I think, a good metaphor to understand it. If you think about kind of a child, like imagine it's your child, right? And your child starts acting out or getting a little angry, or he's just like behaving in some way that's totally unacceptable, right? Like he's get bullying another kid right in front of you, something that I think probably you and I would both be not happy about if we saw.
Hmm.
But that's not going to change our empathy for that kid, right? Like I think I speak for myself, but I think you'd be the same way. We're both pretty caring
I
guys,
am.
in that
Hmm.
we're not just going to be like, I'm not going to call my kid like you little asshole, like what's wrong with you? You're getting being mean to these other kids. Like I'm going to have a deeper understanding for my child's humanity because I know them since they're a little baby, and I have a deep understanding of who they are and maybe some of the things they might be struggling with themselves that are causing them to behave in these ways. So even
Hmm.
though they might be having this external issue, I can see the underlying story that leads up to that. And if I could be consciously aware of that, then it's kind of hard to then at that point divorce empathy from my experience. So I think,
Well said.
yeah, so I think
Yeah.
that's a similar thing that appear happens with strangers as well. As we start to profile them better, we can build relative stories about their that are fairly accurate about their history and about what might have led them to this less than desirable behavior that we're currently experiencing, which allows us to see them as, just another suffering, insecure human being like the rest of us, not necessarily, you know, we see them as more than an asshole, I guess.
Yeah. I agree. I think that was well said because the empathy part of it is huge, and especially nowadays in an environment where a lot of empathy. I think we're a more of a charged society than I think any time.
Yeah.
Where it's like the smallest thing now. And I guess like they say, everything has cycles, and whether it's fashion or anything else, Daisy Dukes, and then they come back, and there's always these cycles. Well, maybe we're at the end of this cycle of like, we're so charged, we're so pissed off at each other. Now it's time to have more empathy come back into this because um, continuing on the direction that we're at, just in general as a large, is not sustainable. And having empathy really gives people a breadth and depth of understanding of like, hey, this could be a reaction, or there's other factors that go into play here, and they know when they're wrong to, like you say, dehumanize somebody, where it's like, hey, I can stop that process and they can interrupt it, versus continue with the process and the script that's already been running the entire time. Now they are aware of it. They can choose to continue to do it or not do it. But really now there's a choice, whereas it was just a default mode the last time.
Yeah. So well said,
Mhm.
man. Yeah, so well said. Totally agree. It's a fun thing learning about all this human behavior stuff. It's quite the journey.
It is. I mean, I'm just getting started in some of it. I mean, obviously the goal here is to get all the way up to the top levels, get as much of it. I know that there's time that goes into it as well, and the understanding, and so it's not just cramming all this stuff in and learning it, but really diving in deep and seeing like for myself and my family and it was interesting because at least for us, at the Austin event when I decided to do the exit, my wife, she's like, "Here's another mastermind. Here's another course." And coming from our environment, it's always the Tony
Another
Robbins and
course,
Russell
another
Brunsons
course.
and
Right, yeah. Hard upsell, like, yeah. Buy, buy, buy. Right. Yeah.
yeah. And you guys, and I mean, there wasn't even a hard sell there, but it was the thing is it like it that's the trajectory that I wanted to go. And I literally told her, I said, hey, you know, again, she had just heard from me what it was about. And that was like, bam, get involved. I think 2 weeks before that, I saw Chase on a video and he was talking about, I forget what it was, but it was something to do with the characteristics of like successful movements are kind of like cults in a sense, and here's some traits, not to give a negative connotation because I want to keep it positive here, but it was these are the things that successful movements do. Write something, a letter or something to future self and things like that. That was one of them that stood out, and I was like, this is ironic because there's three other movements that we're involved in, and
Yeah.
this is exactly the script that they're doing. And so it clearly works. And these are massive movements with large people behind them. And so I
Wow.
said, okay,
And so they were doing some
yeah,
of those same cult type of things. Like when Chase was laying
right.
out the parameters of a cult, you're like, wait, son of a bitch. Yeah,
That's
interesting.
it. I mean, your own language, writing a letter to your future self and putting it, I think it was be surrounded in the environment, cut off us versus them. I mean, these are
Yeah,
the subtle things, but all of this stuff I said, for me, it was mind blowing because I was like, you know what? It kind of goes in to the same thing as I see when I see some of these murder mystery shows is I go, these guys and these criminals on these shows commit these horrendous crimes, but if they just focus like American Greed, but if they focused on doing the right thing, they would move mountains and they would do so well for society. They just make the conscious decision to go negative.
right.
And it was the same thing here. Is I'm like these people that start these cults. Like if they just there's clearly the ability to do the right thing because there's people, like the funnel hacking live community and some other communities with some other individuals in the larger space, people that all of us know. They do their live events and they capitalize like hell on it. A lot of the same characteristics are there, a lot of them, multiple characteristics, and so clearly it works. And I'm like, so they just decided to do good. These other people decide to do bad and create, a sex cult or something like that. And
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense. It's like they're making this, but for me, that's where it hit because I said, we're in the process of doing some stuff on our side with, some of our businesses. I said, this really resonates because it's all based on psychology and it goes into that. I said, the tactics and the protocols and everything else and the little minute details like they work. Maybe there's some of them that are left out, maybe there's other ones that are done differently, but the core concepts are there. It's up to the person to intend to use them well or not, and it's just and how powerful they are. I mean, literally they make movements, they run governments, they run societies on mass beliefs and
yeah,
how things are worked. And I'm just like, I'm still, I mean, even saying it, I'm still blown away from it because I'm like, wow, like just the impact that it has. And these are the smaller things that are just stacked together. You take,
right.
if you told somebody, hey, write a letter to yourself and, give it to yourself a year later, something like, okay, yeah, that's lame. Like what that
Yeah, cool.
single-handedly that
Right,
doesn't do anything. But
right.
when you stack that with something else, and I'm getting kind of into the weeds and I'm simplifying things dramatically here, but stacking these things together and the processes with some of these things, not to
Yeah.
mention using the behavior with it. It's like, it's crazy because I mean, it literally, anybody that has a life purpose, that wants to, I mean, better their own life or, just whatever, but understand themselves better. I mean, that's why I did it and I'm still blown away from it. And it's just the benefits for me, I think, are just, I'm coming back to this going, wow, like I thought of like one, two, or three, but really there's five, six, and seven, eight, nine. And I still haven't seen them all because I'm still going through some of this stuff as well. So it's definitely, I mean, that's kind of what hooked me early on. Another kind of cliffhanger that brought me in where I'm like, man, I need to pay attention to some of this stuff as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting, man. All the influence stuff is like you said, you start to understand these fundamental truths about it, and then you start to see these veins of these influence, like
Hmm.
fundamental influence concepts that stay true, like you said, throughout cults, throughout world governments, and throughout positive environments as well. And I really believe the best way that we can help people kind of break free from those chains of control is to give them awareness of what those things are. In my opinion, and again, I mean, people can come learn from NCI University or not, is not trying to do this as a sales pitch at all, but I really think that one of the greatest things that we can teach to people, it's cool to be able to profile better, learn this sexy influence technique, but just to get
Hmm.
people to be able to see these things for themselves happening in society, happening from the governments, or maybe it's from their parents, or maybe it's from some less than positive group or cult-like organization that they've got wrapped up with in their life. I think, you can try to convince someone or tell someone to change their beliefs on things, and they're never, all you're going to do is create reactance. But if you can kind of
Hmm.
show somebody the framework, show somebody how all this stuff works at a base level, and then just allow them to make their own free choice, give them the free will to do whatever they want. I think it's incredible how many people can be set free from the invisible chains that they have holding them back in life or keeping them tied to these ideologies in life, um,
Hmm.
just by showing them what they are, just by almost like giving them a different type of glasses that allow them to finally see the thing that's in front of them.
I agree with that. And I think that, it's not what somebody perceives may be that turning point of what gets them like, oh, wow, now I should start paying attention to this. Might not even be that. It might be something that's so subtle of like, they understand a concept of something, or maybe something happened to them. And I mean, who knows, whatever it could be. It could be, on a Wednesday afternoon at, 4:31 in the afternoon, and they correlate something to something else. And they're like, wow, like this is, okay, I should pay more attention to this because there's frameworks, I guess, in life. What I've really seen a lot of this is like, there's frameworks and there's protocols and there's all this stuff in life, but like there's there was never like a defined set of parameters and frameworks and stuff like that I was aware of. And so me coming into this, the awareness now is like, okay, wow, there's a whole bunch of stuff here that I just didn't even know. And so now knowing it, it's, you can't unknow
Yeah,
it.
that's
So
true. Very well
it's,
said. Yeah.
and like I said, for me early on, I was like, okay, what if, I came in like, let me use some of this stuff and see some influence and some other stuff that I'll be able to use on my side. And then, now I'm like, holy moly, like there's so much other stuff now that I can, even in my life, just already. And it will still continue. And so now I'm seeing it, to answer your question from a little bit ago, I'm seeing it everywhere I go. I'm able to consciously understand it as I go along. And, something happens. I mean, even ironic, even on the flight back from Black Horse, and this isn't going to happen for everybody, but, the flight got delayed. And we had been delayed like an hour and a half, and we were supposed to have a direct flight to Vegas. And they did a layover in Austin or Dallas. Everybody's pissed off. Either you do the layover and you get new pilots on the plane, or the plane just sits there and doesn't take off at all, and you have to wait 24 hours. And so, there was a situation, everybody's pissed, and the lady gets on the plane, the flight attendant having a horrible day, and she did well right off the bat. She gets on, she goes, I know everybody's pissed off. Like, I'm having a real bad day too. And so some of us is gonna have a real bad day. So either we treat each other nice or and just it for anybody that's sitting there, it's like, oh wow, that lady, she changed it around. But like I understood kind of the psychology behind it.
Yeah,
And then
why that
obviously
would have worked. Yeah.
yeah, understood why it worked, and then ended up um, indirectly, which turned into a direct, use of some of the stuff that we had prior learned. And again, I'm not saying this will work for everybody, but she ended up taking care of me afterward, after the flight. She got one of the bags and put a couple of drinks in it, and she said, "Here, you've been a nice person. You kind of, you've really helped the situation out a little bit." And at the end of the day, I mean, for me, it was great because I've always said, hey, if I can make one person laugh every day, I've completed my mission for the day.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome, man.
I mean,
I think
that
you
was, she
touched on
was not
something
even
big.
starting yeah, she wasn't even starting at a ground level. She was negative because she was pissed. And so it's like,
Yeah.
oh, here's this challenge. Like, let me see if I can, get her to laugh and get her to lighten up a little bit, which I believe she had the spirit in her, but definitely use some influence to help along the way as well. And who knows where that could have been. I mean, I guess the impact with this is like, let's say that didn't happen. She could have had a horrible day, portrayed it on somebody else, and then, this ripple effect on a negative pattern downstream could have ended up, costing somebody their life or something like that. Whereas like now this changed. And so, I mean, we can get, into the philosophical space on this, but it ends up getting into where you're literally having a positive ripple effect everywhere else. And it's good vibes coming out, which you'll
Yeah.
never understand. Like, I'll never understand the knowledge and the depth that this goes because I'll just never know it. I always said I wanted to make a movie where somebody flicks a cigarette, it lands on somebody's car, and then that just is a chain effect for the whole other movie that everybody's pissed off, somebody gets shot. I mean, it's like,
You're
but
right.
take that out of context and reverse it. The same thing. You could do good for somebody, and then they do good for somebody else, and then that triples down the line, quadruples down the line. And maybe they just brought somebody back from possibly ending their life at some point, or doing a dumb decision to go rob a store, or we will never know. Nobody
Yeah,
would
so
ever
true,
know.
man. It's like that butterfly effect stuff can be so true, and it makes me think about just how people define the word influence or manipulation. Like manipulation specifically is a very dirty word in modern culture, and
So
for good
negative.
reason, right? Like there's a lot of people out there doing some less than favorable things to other humans
Mhm.
and like organizations to groups of people that it definitely falls under the umbrella of manipulation. But even then, I find some of that gets turned to influence, where you'll hear people be like, "Well, just be yourself. Why you got to use all these techniques and influence stuff?" And like, it's wrong to influence scenarios, and it's wrong to want to be influential. You should just do nothing but be yourself. But I think what those people are missing, at least in my opinion, is that with real influence, there is no separation between the self and the influence. The influence is something, one, that you've programmed into your brain to where it's just a natural reflection of who you are. There really is
Mhm.
no technique that's being done. So you are just being genuinely yourself. And then number two is if I can influence you to just have a better day, and that's my only end outcome, like you said, like to help somebody laugh, think about what the positive ripple effect that could have in the world. Exactly like you just said, and it doesn't need to be anything more complicated than that. And that,
Mhm.
in its purest form, that is influence. You took somebody who's just having a bad day. You didn't need anything from them. You didn't really want anything from them. You just, other than you wanted to just hopefully help them feel a little bit happier, help them to overcome whatever negative block they were maybe stuck on at this time. And
Mhm.
how can there be anything more pure or better in the world than that, especially in a micro, small scenario? Um, and so in my mind, that's really like the positive, good side of influence that I think isn't talked about enough, and I think isn't
Yeah.
realized by enough people is how important that is to just leave your positive imprint on the world. It's like you're gonna die. Maybe soon, maybe in 60 years from now, maybe in 20, like who knows? No one gets to see our stopwatch, and nobody knows how long this carnival ride's going to keep going for. But I think anybody with a good heart, if there's one thing that's true of all of us, is we ideally want to leave a positive impact. We want to leave this world a little bit better than we found it, at least. And we're not
Mhm.
perfect. We're all humans. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to piss people off. We're going to do wrong things, and that's fine. But I think to strive and drive towards trying to leave the world a better place than you found it, by
Mhm.
definition, requires that you understand influence. I mean, you are saying that you want to influence the world to help be a better place. So it really, the tool does not define the morality of the action. The intention and the action defines the morality and ethics of the action. So I think
Mhm.
for anybody who's maybe at home struggling with the underlying philosophical, you know, uh, contemplation of the moral and ethical tensions with anything around the word influence, I find that's a really good way to break it down and to just understand it on a more deeper level. Get out of your head all of this bullshit that we've learned about influence and think about influence in a deeper way. So yeah, hope that's
Yeah, because
something
there's the
something more.
perceived in my kind of what I got from that, like there's the perceived, you know, connotation of influence. Obviously, manipulation has the negative connotation extremely with it. But at the end of the day, if you're going to manipulate somebody for the better, it's yeah, maybe a poor choice of words, but you're redefining what that word is.
Right. I mean,
And
you could still define you just going to
Mhm,
help this lady out to have a better day as there
mhm.
was a sort of manipulation. If we just put aside the cultural appropriation of the word and really look at
Yeah.
like what does the word mean? Well, yeah, you help to change the inner workings and mechanics of that situation for a positive means or a positive outcome. So yeah, exactly. So
Mhm.
I think it's a really important thing for everyone to think about is uh and also, something I've had to really think about as well is like if you really have a problem with the idea of influence, it might be, and maybe not, but there's a chance that it might be saying something about yourself. It might be a time to look inside of yourself. If you have such a problem with the idea of the word influence, is it because part of you is worried you might use that? Like, why is your brain defaulting to think about it in a bad way, as opposed
Mhm.
to a positive way? And I do think as well, a lot of people are just kind of culturally brainwashed about it.
Yeah.
I think some people just don't make the connection to realize that everything is influence. Influence done well is a part of who you are, not necessarily a technique. And whether you're conscious of it or not, trying to be as pure and just yourself or not, you're always going to be leveraging some type of influence in order to have a communication with anybody or a job or
Mhm.
a relationship with anybody. But doing this stuff in a conscious way and then just making sure that you have a good moral and ethical compass about it, I think can just help you to live a better life, which is something that seems like you're finding, something I've definitely found for myself for sure. And
Yeah. What's interesting is it's probably a good time to say this is like with Chase in the video that he did, which I would recommend everybody watch that. I call it the music video, but I think it says "Come Back Home" or "Come Back."
yeah,
There's a
yeah, oh
part in
yeah, that's
that,
a good.
yeah, so good. And he put in there, he says, "It's not about the work that you did, or it's not about what you did. It's how you made them feel."
Yeah,
And I think at the end of that is that encompasses a lot of like what we're saying now. It's like, if internally somebody's like, I think that if you have good intent and you want to make people feel good, well, your influence is ultimately going to default to good, regardless whether you consciously are aware of it or not. But if you're if you have malintent and you're a little bit worried about self-regulating, then your influence is probably going to default to the negative side. And so it's really diving deep within and saying, am can I make right decisions and can I do right? Do I want people to be better when they come into my ecosystem? Do I want people to be happier around me? Do I want to,
yeah,
try to do better in the world? Because it's not always just about like the hard, tangible things that we do. I mean, sometimes it's, I guess that's why I default to say, if I go through my entire day. We go out to the restaurant one time, and maybe the waiter's having a good day, maybe she's having a bad day. But if I can say a dumb joke or do something funny
Yeah.
to put a smile on her face, well, ultimately I influenced her, whether I wanted
Right.
to or not. And
Right.
that would not have happened if I chose not to do that. Then the program would have just ran throughout the entire day and she would have went on her way. But, I decided, hey, let's, do something stupid here. I can laugh at myself and, maybe this influences her better. And, that one day she could have been the worst day of her life at her job, or she's missing out on something, but that one moment made it worth it. And I think that, and it's not just about me, but maybe the way other people think as well is like you'll never see the results from some of this stuff. You never get an attaboy for doing good. It's
Yeah. So
just
true.
it's like what Chase said is what you're thinking in your mind. Are your intentions good with what you're doing in your mind if the person you're doing them on was in your mind to see them from the back of your own eyes?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
so
yeah,
something
it's a
like
beautiful quote. I love that one too. It's a good
that.
one.
Hmm.
Awesome. Cool. Well, this has been an awesome conversation, man. Thank you so much for taking the
Yeah,
time
man.
to talk with me. I hope people enjoyed the first video. I definitely had a lot of
Mhm.
fun just hanging out and talking with you. Um,
You as well.
before we roll out, is there anything you want people to know? I know you do some marketing stuff and that kind of thing. Is there
Mhm.
anything you want to say to the people before you roll?
Uh, yeah, I think one of the new movements that we're going to be doing with utilizing a lot of this stuff that I'm learning here is foundersfieldday.com, which is founders, business owners, entrepreneurs, and it's a free newsletter. And essentially, we will be talking about different things, confidence, communication. I mean, there's some tactics in there later on, but there's three building blocks, and confidence and communication is the first one. So it's confidence, communication, marketing and operations, and then investing in legacy. And so in building those three, I mean, this is the core of everything. I mean, and that's, I see it as important, but that's kind of the three-step process there. Because the marketing and the operations and everything else that comes in a business deals with confidence and communication. I mean, marketing is communication, running your operations is communication. And I think that, especially now as a society, we're living behind screens. We're not, there's an element of communication. A video like this is even better than a text message. But I mean,
Yeah,
being
so
in
true.
person to pick up on all the little details of the communication, because there's what I say, there's what my intent behind it, and then what's audibly heard, and then how somebody perceives it. And you're taking two of those out when there's only a text thread. And so it leaves it to be ambiguous, where is the person yelling at me, are they pissed, are they, I mean, and the problem is you start racking your brain on that, and it's just all this processing power that goes to waste. And so I'm always about get on a phone call at the minimum where you can hear somebody's voice. But it's kind of what we instill there. And obviously the marketing side of things, I guess if I'm gonna put a plug in here, chriskrace.com, KRISKRACE.com.
I love
But
it. Nice.
I'm bringing this into a lot of the stuff that I have, because I believe it's so impactful, and the communication, and especially the confidence side of it, because communication, I think we all lack, and if somebody says, no, I'm fine, I'm an expert at it, I'd say rethink that, because that sounds like a posturing statement to me.
I love that, man. So cool. Dude, really
Hmm.
appreciate you. We got
Yeah.
the NCI University link will probably be down here below as well. So if you guys are interested in any training, anything we talked about today, would love to see you guys on the inside there. Yeah, thanks again for coming in, Kris. Really appreciate talking with you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, man. Great talks, and I'm sure we'll have more in the future. So thanks to the NCI team, and you guys have been super impactful.
My pleasure, brother.